In 2025, a major shift in U.S. business regulation is taking place. And it isn't about taxes or tariffs. It's about transparency. For decades, corporations and LLCs in America operated with relatively little disclosure about their true owners. That made the U.S. an attractive place to set up companies, but also a haven for shell corporations, money laundering, and tax evasion. Now, with new federal transparency rules rolling out, that era is ending. These changes are poised to reshape how businesses operate, how they're monitored, and how leaders think about compliance. So what exactly are these new rules and why do they matter? The backbone of this change is the Corporate Transparency Act, which officially went into effect in 2024, but is being fully enforced in 2025. Under the Act, most corporations, limited liability companies, and similar entities are now required to report their beneficial owners, the real people who ultimately control or profit from the business. These reports go to the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, known as FinCEN. This is a big deal because in the past, many companies could hide behind layers of LLCs or offshore structures, making it nearly impossible to identify the individuals pulling the strings. Now, companies must disclose names, dates of birth, addresses, and ID numbers of their true owners. Failure to comply isn't just a slap on the wrist. It can mean hefty fines and even criminal penalties. For small businesses, this may sound intimidating, but the reality is that the rules are aimed at curbing abuse. Mom and pop shops or legitimate family businesses aren't the primary targets. The focus is on shell companies that exist only on paper, often used to hide illicit money flows. Still, even small businesses must file reports, and that means new compliance costs and paperwork. For large corporations, the impact is broader. Many multinationals already disclose ownership to regulators or investors, but the new rules tighten the net. Complex corporate structures designed to obscure beneficial ownership are under greater scrutiny. Boards and executives now have to think not only about financial reporting, but also about who is ultimately accountable for decision-making. Let's look at some implications across industries. In real estate, shell companies have long been used to buy property anonymously, especially in markets like New York and Miami. These rules will make it harder for hidden investors, both foreign and domestic, to purchase real estate through opaque LLCs. That could cool off parts of the market, but also improve trust by ensuring buyers and sellers know who's really on the other side. In finance, banks will now have better data when conducting due diligence. Instead of struggling to identify beneficial owners during anti-money laundering checks, they'll be able to access information directly from FinCEN. That makes compliance easier for banks, but it also raises the stakes for companies that try to skirt the rules. In private equity and venture capital, the rules add a new layer of complexity. Funds often operate with multiple entities across jurisdictions. Identifying every beneficial owner, especially when ownership is fractional or layered, is going to require serious compliance infrastructure. Firms that fail to adapt could face legal and reputational risks. Now let's talk about the international angle. These rules don't exist in a vacuum. They align the U.S. more closely with global standards on financial transparency. For years, groups like the Financial Action Task Force have pressured the U.S. to crack down on anonymous shell companies. With these rules, the U.S. is sending a signal. It no longer wants to be seen as a haven for dirty money. That could boost America's reputation in global finance, but also make it harder for some investors who valued privacy above all else. Of course, there are challenges and criticisms. Business groups argue that the new requirements add another layer of red tape, especially for small businesses that lack legal teams. Some privacy advocates worry that sensitive personal data could be misused or hacked. And skeptics point out that determined bad actors may still find ways around the rules through offshore structures or straw ownership. But even with these concerns, the shift is significant. Transparency is becoming part of the DNA of corporate America. And over time, this could reshape how businesses are built and managed. So what should business leaders be doing right now? First, compliance is non-negotiable. Companies must identify their beneficial owners and file reports accurately with FinCEN. Second, leaders should review their corporate structures. Complex, multi-layered ownership models may need to be simplified to avoid compliance headaches. Third, Businesses should prepare for more scrutiny. Investors, regulators, and even consumers will expect greater accountability about who's behind the companies they interact with. In the long run, these changes could even shift corporate culture. For decades, opacity was the norm. Businesses often guarded ownership details as private. Now transparency is becoming the expectation. This may encourage better governance, reduce corruption risks, and make U.S. corporations more resilient. Here's the bottom line. The new corporate transparency rules of 2025 mark one of the biggest regulatory shifts in recent history. For some businesses, it's just more paperwork. For others, it's a wake-up call that the old ways of hiding ownership are over. Whether you run a small LLC or a multinational corporation, compliance isn't optional. These rules are reshaping U.S. business, aligning America with global transparency standards, and signaling a new era of accountability. For leaders, the message is clear. The age of anonymity is ending. The companies that thrive will be the ones that embrace transparency not just as a legal requirement, but as a business strategy for trust, credibility, and long-term growth.